Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lone Star Podcast, and this is episode 92 of my side quest. Now, in this episode, we're going to be reviewing the film Novocaine. Now, this is a film about a guy called Nathan Kane who's basically got the ability to not feel any pain, right? He's a bank assistant manager at a bank, and his bank gets robbed, and the girl that he likes basically gets kidnapped, and he's setting out on a track to save his girl. Essentially is what this film is about. But Nathan Kane cannot fight. He's not strong. His only ability is that he can't feel pain. Now, this is an interesting ability because it doesn't mean he can't die. He's not invincible. He just doesn't feel pain. So, doesn't mean he can't get a heart attack. Doesn't mean he can't get shot, bleed out and die. He just won't feel it when it happens, right? So that means we see our character, Nathan Kane, in, some interesting situations. He's able to get himself in and out of very interesting situations. So he goes about trying to take down the guys who kidnapped his girl. Spoiler alert, it turns out his girl was working with the kidnappers, the bank robbers. And, Nathan Kane goes on this whole thing, trying to save her, all for it to be she's in on the job. But you know what? It was a decent action film for what it was. I'm not going to knock it. It was a decent action film for what it was, right? It's not up there with the Extraction 2s or the John Wick 4s. It's not up there with that. And it's probably just a tier below Nobody, right? So in terms of action films, at the top you've got Extraction 2, John Wick 4. Then second tier is like Nobody. And then the tier just below that is something like this, Novocaine, right? Where it tries to be funny and it's not really funny. But they're able to keep that light-hearted tone, so you don't really notice it's not funny, if that makes sense, right? Great actor, Jack Quaid, very good actor. Liked how he portrayed Nathan Kane. Similar to his character in The Boys, but obviously in this he's the main character. Even though earlier on in The Boys he was sort of the main character, but now it's more about Homelander, it feels. But I say all of that to say, dude's a good actor, and he put on a good performance in this film for sure. And then I was watching this, and like I said, or I don't know if I've said before, but I showed up to this film, late, so I'm not going to be a in-depth, minute-by-minute review of the film. So I showed up late, heavily medicated as well. So obviously I'm coming into the film, slightly faded, not really knowing exactly what's going on, right? But a decent film, enjoyed the vibe. To be honest, when you show up to a film halfway in and you're heavily medicated, you're worried about the vibe, bro. What's the vibe of this film? And it was a pretty chill film. Some gory moments at times when they're really displaying Novocaine's powers and how he kind of has to pretend to even be in pain when he's getting tortured in this one scene. Spoiler alert again, but a fun film, a film that. And by the end of it, I was thinking in my head, would I want to see a sequel of this? And you know what? I was thinking, I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel of this, right? I looked at the box office numbers, and it's probably going to make a loss. At the time of recording this, is towards the end of its box office run, and the numbers I'm seeing, it made about 32 million worldwide, and for it to break even, it would have had to make about 45. So there'll be about 12 million, 13 million loss. They'll slap it on streaming services, and they'll recoup a bit of money, but overall, this film will be a loss-making enterprise, a loss-making entry. I don't even know which film should have produced it. I'm not going to look into it. I'm again still heavily medicated. I'm not looking into all of that. But Novocaine was a decent film. Out of 5 stars, I'd give it a 2.5-star film. Not a complete waste of time. You can watch it and not feel like your time is being completely wasted, like it does with some of these newer Disney and Marvel properties, like Secret Invasion or something, or whatever, or the Marvels, right? Where you just watch it and you have time. It just feels like you've just wasted your time watching this film, right? But Novocaine isn't like that. Novocaine is a fun film that I would halfway recommend to anyone who's not seen it. If you've not seen Novocaine, I would suggest seeing it, slapping it on in the background, maybe not, dedicating huge periods of time to it because it's not that great of a film. And to be fair, it's over in a breeze, what it feels like. It's probably just under 2 hours, so it doesn't drag at all. And like I said, it's a decent viewing experience. The camera work was good, some interesting sort of cinematography as well, when he would, take the adrenaline to boost himself up. That, like, some really cool scenes there. Novocaine, decent film. Like I said, I gave it 2.5 stars. Yeah, at some point I could see myself watching this film again. Being honest, I could see myself watching it again. Because like I said, it's one of those films where, because it's sort of low commitment, it's not like a MCU entry where you have to really think about things and think about what was the sequels leading up to this, what am I expecting to see in this film, what was the last thing I saw from this character going into this film. You don't have to think about all of that with a film like Novocaine. You can just put it on and watch this guy, right? And that's an underrated space in cinema now, and even undervalued, because a film like this is a perfectly serviceable film. Didn't have a gigantic budget, only 45 million, and even that couldn't even break even. Or not gigantic budget, but the budget wasn't 45 million, but apparently the set break-even point was 45 million, right? And even a film like this couldn't make profit, and it is a bit disappointing to see, because it is a good film. Like I said, it is a solid film, but I guess that's sort of where the box office and cinema sort of industry is at this point, where if you want to make even a bit of money, you have to produce an amazing film. Maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe that's, in theory, should force studios to make better films, but unfortunately, it's not always been the case. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of Novocaine. If you've seen it, if you're going to see it, watch the film, then come back to this video, let me know what you think. But yeah, another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.